Hey guys, Ryan Gill here with Hunt Primitive, and this is going to be one of our last Flint Napping Fridays that we're going to do for a while. I think maybe one more, but today we're doing something different than we've done, and that is we're going to be napping Kentucky Hornstone. So this is a new addition to the Hunt Primitive website. We got a big load in of that, and we're going to be working on a Dalton point. Dalton style, very similar to the Dalton style that I used to kill the very first bison that we filmed for the Hunting the Ancient Bison documentary that was a couple years ago. So we're going to work through and we're going to make one of those out of Kentucky Hornstone. And of course, throughout the video, we work through the rock and we teach you what we're doing, the different problem areas we run into, so you know how to address those areas as well. And then also, there's a couple different tool tips and tricks that I've kind of been working through as well, some things that I can pass along to you. And then also, we're giving a little bit of information as to the direction of the channel and some of the hunting videos now that we're going to circulate back in to the channel moving forward in the next few months. So you'll be interested to hear that information as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on breaking that piece of rock. All right, we're going to start off with a nice little spall of Kentucky Hornstone. So let's skin some cortex off this. And I think what we're going to shoot for is making a Dalton-ish type of point, very similar to the one that I killed the very first bison with the atlatl. So not a real big one, but just a nice, sharp, nasty little atlatl bison hunting point. And so if you don't know much about Kentucky Hornstone, it doesn't take any heat, so it's just something you nap raw. Really nice rock overall. And we just got in a nice big shipment, and I think we're going to get another one in here soon too. So this stuff will be on the website as well. In fact, by the time you're watching this, it's already on. I think I'm going to work with some copper today just because I know some of the last videos we keep swapping back and forth between doing antler and doing copper and stuff like that, and I think I'm due for another copper one. Plus, when I did the Clovis one and we did it all with indigenous or aboriginal tools, you kind of got to look at a paleo point like that. So we do like a transitional paleo point, but in the, I guess in the effort of teaching, I know most people gravitate towards the copper, and so oddly enough, I like to do all the abo napping stuff and sharing that with people. However, I typically find that people that are coming to learn are going to use copper, and therefore that's what they want to see. So if you want to see some of the antler tool stuff, we've certainly got many other videos to watch that. So anyway, much as we've explained, moving the center lines around through the various napping videos we've done, really what I'm trying to do is just create, I'm not even that worried about raising platform too much here. I'm just skinning this cortex off, so you'll see how fast that it slides right off. It skins really nice like Georgetown does, so it's not a terribly problematic cortex, but you definitely want to get it off there about as early as you can. There we go. See, so my angles are actually, they're not set up to run a flake to center, and the reason is I'm just trying to get that layer, I mean a real thin layer of stone to slide right underneath that cortex to pop that cortex off. So I'm actually not trying to drive anything to center, because that cortex, it just doesn't make a good platform. So I'm just trying to skin enough of it off so I can start getting my platforms. You can see it just crushes, so you just gotta work at it gently until you get it off. And I think that's pretty good. The stuff on the back I'm not too worried about. We'll clean that up later. In fact, that's really thin cortex there. Alright, so now I got obviously two wide sections here, so this is a problem that most people have, and now a center line that goes right down the center. So now I kind of have to, as opposed to a center line that goes off to the side. But the center line really is between these two, so I don't have a perfect platform on either side. I almost have to choose and say which one. And I think because this side has this big flake removed here from spalling, that I'm gonna go ahead and work the platform up so I can kind of clean this up first, because this side, although it's quite lenticular, there's not really much going on here. It's all just part of the bulb of percussion, so there's not a lot of problem areas, and I think we'll be able to clean that up really easily. So I'd rather save the easier side for last and do the more troubling side first. So as we look down, I'm going to move our platform line. You know, we're going to take the center line here and then move it up. So we're going to do that again by removing flakes off the bottom, which will raise up this platform over to this side, which will sacrifice a little bit of the width, and then we'll be able to run flakes effectively through here. So little choppy flakes, nothing substantial at this point. We're just raising that center line. Just a little bit like that. See how we just shoved it off? I guess you guys were looking at it like that. So we've just moved it off just a little bit, and then I'm going to braid away from the direction that I want to run down into these. Now I don't want to try to run these great big Haas flakes right into here, because then I'm just going to step fracture it down into this bulb here. So I'm going to start up here and just, we're going to just kind of gauge and see how it goes. In fact, this angle right here is not a very good one. So I'm going to raise that up just a little bit more too. But if you remember me talking in the flint knapping for beginners video, where look at this like a stack of paper, you're not going to try to come in here and take paper off the bottom. You know, you're going to take it off the top first. So come in through places you can access. And this one here, actually the highest point's over here, but we can't jump in to take this highest point out either right away, because it's kind of locked in by this. So what we'll probably do here is we'll clean this up, and that will isolate this island a little bit more, and then we'll probably raise that center line up again and then drive another one across the top of this, or we'll raise it up and make a new platform and actually run this way. So we'll see, but that's kind of the strategy that we're going for here. Okay, so we just kind of cleaned that up and isolated that platform a little bit. And I think we do have a little bit of a high spot on this side that I can strategically remove, because I don't need to go to center, I just need it to come out to here. So I'm actually going to try to remove this and actually see if we can't create a better platform. See, there's that little high spot I was just talking about. Pop that, and now we can clean this up. So again, think of like a game of chess, that you're planning several moves ahead. You're not just looking at one hit and saying, okay, you know, this is my next hit. I'm planning ahead, going, well, I want to get this off, but in order to get this off, I got to do this first, and I got to do this first, and I got to raise the platform, and then I can remove this, and then raise the platform so I can then drive a flake. So be thinking in your head. It's a long-term strategy. That's what makes the game of knapping so much fun to me, is it's not just one problem at a time. It's strategy and working into it. And then if it doesn't work out, you got to change strategy. All right, so now I got just a little something goofy going on there with the platform, and it's like I almost made a little bit of a dish out. There we go. And I didn't want that. So now we're going to try to run that ridge right there. Okay, so that ridge right there. So it's not an ideal platform. In fact, I actually think I have another one back here. I can get rid of that, because I'm worried when I go to hit it that I may clip this edge. And what I want is this platform, but this one's kind of in the way. So I'm just gonna walk that back. Oops, there, I kind of goofed it up. There we go. We'll be able to clean that up a little bit better later off that little whoop, but it's no big deal. All right, now that platform's opened up, I'm gonna grind that one real good. I'm gonna try to run a pretty substantial flake. There we go. I'm gonna put that back together for you a little bit so you can see what happened. So remember we were talking about that ridge. If you want to go, I'm just going to get rid of that one. If you go back and just rewind it, I don't know, 30 seconds, and I'll say this ridge right here, that was the ridge, that was the platform we exposed, and we ran completely down that ridge, completely coast to coast, and overshot off the backside, getting rid of that little bit of cortex there too. Now what it did was it made us another ridge, which is perfectly fine, and we may line up and do the same thing, but because we kind of evened, remember we had this big dish and there's a little bit of one right here that from that bulb of percussion. Now it's really smooth in here, and that's probably going to be where our point is. This really isn't that important to us. I mean, I may slide the point this way as we go, but if I need to, I can do it over here where it's already a little thinner. I'll try to maximize the length as much as I can, but trying to drive this way is probably not that important. I'll try one more, I bet, but I may come at it from the side. But let's see how it kind of looks. Now, taking a lesson also, I'm going to get a pointer for you, actually from the blade core video. This is why just working with so many different techniques and stuff, you just learn more and more and more. In that blade core video, which I recommend watching just to better understand this. When you look at these ridges and the ridge goes off to the side, now in my mind I start looking at it like the one we just removed here, which is very much like a blade core removal where you're following a ridge, you know. So what I do know from the past is if in that blade core video, if your ridge terminates off to the side, it's almost impossible to get it to hook and come around. So if you hit this here, you're actually just going to mess up the ridge. So what I want to do is I want to actually just take a couple little, I may pressure flake it, but I'll probably hit it with a bopper and actually kind of move this ridge over so it's more in line so I can run it. Now I don't think this one's going to terminate out because there's a little goofy spot here and then also a little bit of a dish, so it'll probably come over and it'll hinge off right here, but we'll be able to clean that up later. All right, do you see how we just moved we moved that ridge right in line now, so now it's not as curled over. A little bit more maybe. We straighten that out, so now maybe we can get a decent, it's not a great platform, but we're gonna try it. It may just come in here and stop because it's really just not prepped out well, but if I get it, it's going to be nice, and if I don't, it's really not a big deal because I'm going to come from the side anyway. So if I can get it all, I'll get it all. If I don't, it's fine. Well, I got about where I told you that we were going to hit that little depression and stop. So we got that one, ran that blade, and it made us another ridge. So kind of the same deal. We're just going to walk that all the way over. In fact, we're going to do the same thing with that platform. No, probably not. Yeah, we got some of it there, but now it just opened up enough we can clean that off. So there we go. Removed pretty much all of that, and then there's this little bit of trash back here that's not really important as of right now, but we'll just kind of clean through it a little bit. I don't want to hit this. I want to, don't get me wrong, but I almost did it. It's a great platform to hit, but I can tell the angle. It's going to run in here, and it could potentially wipe this little hinge out, but there's a very good chance that it actually just make it worse going the other direction. So we're going to be patient on that one, and we're not going to hit that one yet. Okay, now we got this side really cleaned up except for just this one little spot. no big deal. There's always a little bit of work to do it one tip or the other, I suppose, but we don't need to get it perfect. But that's a really nice flat surface compared to what we started with. It had this big concave area from the bulb of percussion. So now we're going to have the other side that was very clean but very lenticular. Now we can start working in and moving our center lines over to this side to remove these flakes. So you can see how much flatter we are now on this side. See that? So we removed all of that, but now our center line's over here. So now it's where we sacrifice width, which is fine. I don't need anything that's nearly this wide, because penetrating animals with points that are this wide doesn't really work. Anyway, so I'm just going to sacrifice some of this on both sides to raise the platform to these sides. So there's not much to it, just little choppy flakes. Definitely don't need any of that width. When it's all said and done, I really am going to want this point to be ideally about 1 inch wide. And that's about the perfect size for jamming into a bison. And so I'm sure by this point, unless it's your first time to the channel or you're really new to it, you've probably seen that first bison hunt and really had it dead with just one spear through the heart, one atlatl thrown spear with a small point, which is again what we're making here. And but it was still standing there, and I got a chance to go up and put another one in it. But realistically, it was a 1 spear, 1 kill, and that was with that Dalton style of point. But speaking of all of that, with especially all the Clovis stuff we've done, you've probably also, hopefully, have seen our latest Clovis documentary, where we were really experimenting with a whole bunch of stuff. Like if you watched I'll continue that story in a second, but I'm actually jumping ahead. I'm not going to clean this one. I'm actually going to see if I can't run one across here. I'm not going to push it. I usually don't jump straight to the center. I usually work over, but it's like the highest point and it's the closest platform, so that's what we're going to try there. But now we'll try one more. There, we got it. Okay, so at least I just kind of knocked a little bit of that out of the way, and I'll slide over, do the same thing there, and then this side I'm going to raise the platform a little bit. But anyway, that last Clovis documentary, really exploring a lot of different tools and ideas and concepts. Some ideas that others have proposed and we wanted to put to the test, and I wasn't loving some of the ideas, but I thought it was worth a fair shake to try them out, and then really develop some of our own tool usage and allocation from the things in the Clovis assemblage. But and it worked out just fine. We ran the bison down and ended up having to spear it quite a few times, and the whole atlatl system really just was not ideal what we were testing. We expected it to work a little bit better than it did, but it was still good data, because sometimes bad performance is still good data, and we still had it down in about 16 minutes, which is pretty darn fast for a bison. But now I'm going to tell you, and I'll continue that story in a second. Now I've just raised this center line, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to start trying to catch this up on this side. But we decided after that we don't like to leave things alone and just say, well, it was good enough, it worked. So we got back together here recently and actually went back to the atlatl systems that we know work really, really well from the previous, or the very first bison hunt that I was talking about this style of point, where we got really good penetration. And so we went and hunted a really big bull, and we expected we'd have to put a few in it to bring it down, because it was a pretty substantially sized bull. And just one Clovis point about the width of my finger, that's it. It was about that big right there. One Clovis point through the lungs brought it down in under 5 minutes. So it just shows you really how devastating these little hunting points are that just penetrate in and do a massive amount of damage. So that's, again, tells a better story as to why we're making these small, spear point projectiles as opposed to these great big, pieces, because those are really knife blades, when you start looking at those big ones. But anyway, that new Clovis video is going to be out here probably in just another couple weeks, and I wanted to let you know that it is going to be significantly different, because if you've been following the channel, you've noticed we've been expounding on the Clovis and really refining it. So I've got the Clovis fluting video out now. If you haven't seen that, check down in the description area or on my channel, and then we talk about how to make those deeper hinged flutes. And also have a really interesting video, at least I think it's interesting, most people probably think it's boring, on the bibeveled rods, which are always have some interest behind them, and people come up with some funny ideas for them, but really the it's pretty simple, just splicing your spear shafts together. But anyway, kind of enough talk about that. I'll get back to this. I just wanted to let you know what was going on with that project, because we redid it and we refined the whole thing. So I think you're going to be pretty impressed with what we come up with on that next Clovis video, and it's going to point back to a lot of these other videos we've recently done, like the Clovis fluting and like the pre-Clovis point that you watched on FlintKnapping Friday, and the bibeveled rods and all of that. So anyway, all right, we got ourselves down to a decent little biface. This side's still fine, and I've got some step fracture stuff here I got to take care of, and mostly at this point I just want to, we still have plenty of width, so I'm just gonna raise the platform up about as much as I can. Whew. Not getting quite what I'm looking for out of this. I think I got to hit it just a little higher on the platform. There we go. Drove that one over some of that junk. Sometimes I get to telling the story and talking too much, and I'm not actually working through the point mentally in my head. I'm seeing what I'm doing, but I'm not actually working the problem. That's why I actually don't nap very good in a social setting. So if we sit down with a whole group of people and we're just chatting, I either have to ignore everybody and focus on the point, or I'm just going to make kind of a bunch of garbage. But also keep in mind that we're just about to the end of the experimental FlintKnapping Friday series, and I do want to tell you about that real quick, because we're going to run into I think we're going to do one more after this one, possibly one more after that, but it might just be this one and one more. But the reason is we're taking time now to edit out a whole bunch of the hunting videos that we did last year that you guys haven't got to see yet. So we've been hanging on to those to put out this summertime, because this time of year people aren't that excited about deer hunting videos or hog hunting videos. But as summer rolls on, people start dreaming of fall. They get a little bit more interested, and typically nobody's got any videos that time of year, so that's why I'm saving them and then dropping them off. So you're going to see a lot more of hunting videos popping up here in the following months. And obviously we're moving now away from the atlatl videos. So once this next Clovis video is out, it's going to be almost all bow and arrow for a while. So we kind of run cycles on that. If you've noticed, we've been hot and heavy on the Clovis and pre-Clovis atlatl stuff, and now we're getting back into primitive archery as that season starts to come back around to us. So that's just a little bit of a preview as to what to expect in the coming months. Okay, think I told you everything I wanted to tell you about that. And now we've got a really nice little preform. This side's quite nice. Some really nice long, even some overshot flakes. Got one little spot here I'm not loving, but we'll trim that out later. So this side I'm going to kind of leave alone. We're going to get back to this side that has a couple more of these problems. And now really I'm just going to raise the platform, which raising the platform is going to get rid of quite a few of these, you know, little hinge spots that we have. And might even pull you in here just a little bit closer as we get a little bit more detailed work going. You'll be able to see what we're up to a little bit better. But yeah, just by raising these platforms, we'll probably get rid of some of those little edge crush step fractures, which is nice. I'm starting to lean towards this being the point and this being the base, but we'll see if it sticks out or sticks to that plan. I definitely don't want to create a whole bunch. You know, you can even see as you chop down, you start actually creating them on the other side as well. But again, not a big deal once we come back and clean that up. So that looks pretty good on that side. So the Hornstone is it's similar to Georgetown in some ways, and then other ways it's a little bit more of a dense rock. Like it's a harder rock. I mean, it's rocks are hard, I got it, but like Georgetown is, to me, it's a little bit more of a softer, like a little bit more of a clay-like consistency to it, if that makes any sense, like silicified clay, as opposed to this is a little bit, feels like more compact and less clay-like and more hardstone. There, we got that one. I might switch out my hitty smacky tool here a little bit. Try the next size down, see if I like it, or I may get into indirect. Didn't love that. That was decent. Never know what tools I'm gonna go with next. Whatever I'm feeling in the moment. That's why it's nice to have such an array of tools, and ones in different stages, ones that are still squared off, and then ones that are just getting a little bit rounded like this one, and then ones that are really coned out, even like this, that are just about to the end of their life cycle. But having all of those different options just gives you a different surface to hit platforms with. I got excited there. I better braid that. So, and then keeping in mind too, we want it thin, and it's not terribly thin right now. We want it thin, but remember, this is an atlatl projectile that we're making here. It's not an arrow point. And so the atlatl projectiles are, I typically try to leave them a little bit thicker, and the reason is because when you're holding a handful of spear shafts and you're running along somewhere, if it's really, really super thin and they clack against each other, like you have a whole bunch and they kind of have the long spear shafts have a little bit of bounce, if you're running or walking fast or swinging your spear shafts around, you stand a little bit better chance of breaking really, really paper thin points if they're on the end of your spear shaft. But the spear shaft's got so much power to penetrate that you don't have to have them as streamlined as your arrow points. So you can kind of get away with a little bit more rounded noses. Of course, on this one we're not going to. Dalton's typically got a very, very sharp tip on it. Slightly round noses are okay for atlatl, where they're really not for arrow points. I don't like them at all. And having that little bit of a thicker cross section isn't a bad idea either. So I just wanted to explain to you why I'm not going to try to get this thing as thin as possible. Plus, also keep in mind that, you know, those spear shafts, when they hit, they've got quite a bit of power, and when they hit, they don't always hit absolutely perfectly straight because you're talking about a really long spear shaft. So when they hit, sometimes they're off to the side just a tiny bit, or they're still oscillating in flight. And so if you've got a really thin point and it doesn't land perfectly, perfectly true to the target like you would be shooting, an arrow, but if it kind of is flying in at a little bit of like a yaw, then you're more likely to, that would be a severe yaw, but I'm just kind of giving you a visual here that it could potentially snap the point at the haft, but pop, where if it's thicker, it might just work itself through. So just food for thought on that kind of stuff. All the things that we've learned over the last several years of both bow and arrow and atlatl hunting. And it helps to make sense of some of the projectiles as well that you find, and then wonder why it's maybe not quite as thin or streamlined as it could be. Alright. It's going quite nice overall. I mean, at this point, I'm really just I'm not making any real strategic plays. I'm just raising the platform, and then I'm just working the point in at this point. I'll probably do a couple last minute thinning flakes to get just a little thinner than this. We'll probably try indirect, but I don't want to do it now because it's so wide. The chances of going all the way across are a little bit slimmer, especially with this more lenticular shape on this side, but mostly just battering the edges to create platforms at the same time as just moving the width in to where we want it to be a good point for penetration. So this is a point that a lot of people do continue to make a mistake and say, well, it's still really wide and I want to thin it some more, and next thing you know, they've got a thin edge already, and next thing like maybe the center's a little bit thick but here's thin. They'll keep hitting it, and then that's when you're going to start making, like it happened here, you start making more problems to fix. And so if you want to thin more, the best thing you can do is actually widen your edge a little bit, so it's going to give you a better platform to actually run flakes. Because as you thin this, it starts to make those little concave flake scars, and when you try to drive flakes, as we've talked about before, they won't go through it more times than not. They'll stop and they'll hinge on you. And so if you start finding that you get a lot of like little step fractures, it's typically because you're still trying to drive thinning flakes on a very thin edge, which we don't want to do. I am going to switch over, I believe, and do a little bit of indirect, maybe on the big side at first. I'm gonna see if I'm feeling it today. So far, I didn't much care for that. That was a good one. Remember too, sometimes I gotta remind folks, if you got big flake removal, use the cap on. That's what that's for. It's not there for hand swinging, and it's not there to look good. If you find yourself using remember the thin bit up here, that's for your fine removal. So if you're trying to grab onto great big honking flakes and remove them, sometimes you can, but that's when you're going to start bending this, or working it back and forth, and eventually have a problem with it. And then wearing it down. But if you use just the thin side for fine work, and then use the corners, because this lasts a long time, use the corners for your big flake removal, that tool right there will last you quite a long time. I mean, hundreds of points I can get out of one. I'm probably getting to where I don't need that side much anymore. One spot there I'm not loving. I'm gonna see if I can. No, I'm just not loving that. the angle that's giving me right now isn't really jiving with me. Like, I'm having a hard time picturing it is the problem. Now I can't find my dang tools. I got an old one here. I don't know where my other one is, but that's fine. I think we'll make this one work. Little rascal point. Yeah, I don't know, or little rascal tool. I don't know where my other one went that I've been using. This is like the old original. Let's see if that feels any better to me. Not too bad. There we go. We almost got that piece off. That would have been nice. This is really the side that I want to focus on though, but I got some weird stuff going on here. I'll show it to you. See what we're up to. So, see there's like some little tiny step fractures right here. I'll have to turn it over so you can see it, I guess. Little tiny step fractures right there, and there's some concave flake scars. And I really want to hit and run this out, but I know we're going to see the flakes just constantly wanting to stop, so I'm going to dress this up with a flaker first, and then try to drive across it. There we go. That's a little bit better. Got it right there. See it? So in fact, now that I haven't removed it, we got rid of that little step fracture stuff that was right here, like that was real bad, and then created just that little platform that I could hit and pop that off. So we had that one little goofy spot there I didn't like, so now it's gone. Good deal. It's like, just take a couple minutes and prep. Ooh, boy, we had a good one there, and I just missed it. I heard the little piece go flying, and I think that was our best bet to get that one. There we go. That was a nice one too. Ran just a little bit past center. See how we're just working this is our final thinning flakes we were talking about, right? So now we're just going to continue to work down that right there. I think I got about one more with this, maybe two. I don't want to get too big of a bite here. Small one. Yep, right there. It's really about all I wanted. I didn't want that big bite because it's gonna dish in then. So that's about perfect. And it thinned out our edge, and now we've got just enough we can clean up, and then we'll be able to take this ugly spot out when we do the base, bifurcate the base a little bit. We'll be able to take that out. Actually, we got some on this side. We might take another hit and see if we can't. I'm gonna prep that platform just a little bit. Take some of the knife edge out of it. It was just a little too sharp. There we go. Little rascal doing work, huh? Boy, I want to hit that. I want to hit that one bad. There's a little ridge, but I guarantee you if I hit it, it's going to stop right there, and it's going to make this even worse. So be patient. Man, I want to hit that so bad. It's just scream. Oh, it's so hard not to hit it. But I know it's a bad. I might get it. I might run it across, but there is a very high chance. I kind of want to do it just to see if I call the play. But I don't want to. I have a feeling if I hit it there, it's going to hinge right there, and then I'm going to have a two-sided hinge. And then I'm going to be mad at myself and say, why did I do that? So, alright, we're getting pretty darn close now. I think we're going to switch over to indirect to clean up and get our final shape together. Alright. And back you out just a little bit. See what we're up to, hopefully. Maybe not that far. I know something I'm missing too as we start getting closer. Give me 1 second here. That's what we're missing. Gets harder and harder for me to see. I'm certainly not an old man, but I don't have young eyes anymore. So glass will certainly help a little bit so I can see these little platforms a little bit better. All right, now let's get after it. Take a couple little test removals. There we go. It's a nice one. Nice flake there. Very nice. Keep this in mind as far as tool also. I've discovered that I get a different energy transfer sometimes if I'm choked up on it, like I got the stick halfway in my knee. I get a different one compared to if I have a lot of it sticking out, where I have a little bit more bounce. In some rocks, in some situations, I prefer that extra bounce. And then other times I'll choke way up on it where I don't want really any bounce at all. And you can feel it when you hit that it is you're really cutting down the distance between where you hit and the rock, and so it makes the energy transfer into it. It's just different. So try that as well. Different positions, especially if you get to a point. Then what made me kind of start figuring that out is I would hit it and I wasn't getting the flakes removing that I wanted to, and actually it was working with the antler tines, and as it would get shorter I would have to choke up on it, and actually that's how I learned it. So when I switched back over to a long one, I was like, oh, I don't much care for the bounce, so I started choking up on it, and it kind of transferred into using this tool now as well, where I'll slide it in and out just kind of depending on how I'm feeling the tool and how the tool is reacting to the rock. See how it has a little bit more bounce than I kind of wanted to, but still went to center and stopped. That was a nice one there. Oh, that was a really nice one. So now we're doing that like last. See, I'm running these ones nice thin flakes right across center. Now what I'm actually going to do here, I'm going to show you that we're on the tip here, we're really concave. You can see we got a little bit of like a bow into the point where we're setting up nice platform for this side, but you can see how it's undercut on this side, if you can see that. So if I go hit it here, it's going to stop and it's going to create another step fracture. So, and there's no platform on this side, so we're not going to hit that. We're just gonna pressure fight, but we're not pushing in and trying to fold and follow over. We're just pushing straight down. So it's not an in and down. We're not removing flakes this way. We're pretty much folding straight down to cut out some of that concavity. It's not quite crushing as much as it is flakes to just even out that concavity, which we've pretty well done right there. So we still have one concave flake scar here and one here. So I mean, we're not gonna like, because it's concave in this little spot, we're not gonna grab this and try to remove a flake because it's gonna promote it to step fracture. So we would have to back this off a little bit and then move this platform over just a tiny bit. So move that platform over just a little, and then actually raise it back up from the other side. And now we've exposed that right there, so where I should be able to grab it and run one with less chance of step fracture. Still may. But also it's directional, so I'm not coming straight in. Okay, if I come straight in, I'm going to hit that. So I'm going to turn. I'm actually going to aim it at a slight angle back. Okay, so I'm actually aiming for about where my finger is here on this platform. So it's all how you line it up in the direction that you are facing the tool. Oh, didn't get it. There it was right there. So ran that little ridge out, so that's quite nice. Couple little cleanup hits, that's all that is. Nothing major. I do have one more little one right there. Whoop. Decent. Alright, that's looking pretty nice. In fact, I may clean up the tip just a little bit more. Right there. I should have abraded that before I hit it, but it was too late. And I got like a micro step fracture right there. Hardly anything to worry about though. It'll still probably be gone by the time we finish this point out. Clean this tip up just a little so it's not too fat. You keep your tip, you want to thin it down as you go, but if you make it needle sharp now, you'll break it off. And then if you leave it too thick, when you have to thin it later, you'll snap it back here. So just kind of keep it at pace. Come on, get off there. Doesn't really want to work. It's alright. We still have quite a ways to go on that tip, so I'm not too worried about it. Got it from the other side. Alright, again, I don't want to see how we're getting a little straighter on this side, but they're a little bit more rounded, so we want to take that rounding out. Well, if you just keep thinning it and thinning it on that knife edge, you're going to step fracture it. So crush it, or straight down flakes to narrow it in, but then also create a better platform to follow up on. So we're definitely starting to close in on our final shape. There we go. Very nice. Really clean up that side. Oh, clean that up just a little bit more. A little bit more work on this side now. Ooh, getting a weird cramp on my thumb. Not sure why. Not normal for me. Okay. There we go. That was a nice one. Past center. Still got a little bit of width and thickness to get rid of here. Not a lot. I gotta be careful because this is just asking to step fracture it, but we also have more width than we need. As of right now, this is still bigger than I really want it for a bison killing point. Still on really the size of getting to be a little bit smaller of a knife blade sort of tool. There we go. That was a really nice one. Notice too that I'm not I bet if you watch some of my earlier videos with using the indirect stick, where I was probably putting a pretty good hit on it, where you do with antler, you gotta try to put a pretty good smack on it. And what I've really learned is once you really set up those platforms, that's why these last so long, is they're not really getting abused. And then when you use the big side for the big work, and then this side for all this thin cleanup work, you get a lot more life out of it, and then you also make a lot fewer mistakes. So you'll kind of only once in a while see me line up and take a pretty good smack. Typically like I've mentioned in other videos, if your platform, and it doesn't matter if it's pressure or indirect or percussion knapping, if your platforms are set up well, it doesn't take much to remove the flake. It just pops right off. See, I had one little step fracture. That's where I told you that I wanted to hit that, and I kept saying, man, I want to hit that, man, I want to hit that, man, I want to hit that, and then I didn't, except I was expecting it to go here. Well, now I've developed one here, which has become a little bit of an issue for me, but I'm just kind of working through it at the moment. And it's just not, it's pretty much just getting worse. So step fracture after step fracture, but we also have a lot more width here than I actually want, so I'm not worried about it. I was hoping I'd be able to clean it up. I'm just going to sacrifice that width because it'll get rid of all these, and then we'll go ahead and be able to run over top of that. So that's all I'm going to do there. No big deal. No sense in freaking out about it. That was definitely like a one-hit mistake I made right there, that I couldn't get it to go over, and I just went downhill from there. So instead of stopping to reposition, I just kept trying to muscle through it, that's like a rookie mistake I see so many people make, and then as long as I've been napping, I still do it. So doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, as soon as you get impatient, that's when you start making a mistake, and then you got to go back and try to fix it. So basically just made a real big mistake on the chessboard. Now I gotta keep trying to win the game. Alright. Now you can see it is all shades of just messed up down here. It's a little step fracture here that I made, and that's what we were trying to run out, and now it's really clunky on that side, but I've got a big strong platform here, and then that's what runs into this. So I'm kind of hoping we'll get one really good hit that'll drive this off, and if it does it again, I'm gonna have to come at it from a totally different angle. In fact, I don't think this is the tool. I think this is the tool. That was it right there. Didn't get all of it, but we sure got quite a bit of it. And that helped. Definitely helped. Alright. Yep. And keep raising the platform a little bit. And now we can actually work the base up a little bit too, closer to it, because I don't need this base to be quite this knife edge, and it's a little bit long yet anyway. Really looking for something about like this size. Okay, so we still have size to deal with, so I'm going to chase this side's good here, so I'm going to use this side, raise the platform, removing flakes, because we have this one big ugly step fracture yet that's just been here since the word go. So we're gonna raise this up and actually probably even start bifurcating the base, and by bifurcating I mean basically just like leaving the outsides protruding further and then working it in like we do Daltons to get a platform to pop that out. So that's kind of what I'm up to at the moment. I'm just gonna kind of chip crush that out of here. So we're getting a little bit closer, and then establishing that platform. Then once we get that off, that's going to open up the window to clear up those other mistakes that we had made. All right, let's see. See if we can't do anything with it. So kind of made a little platform here on that step fracture, and I don't want to get it all at once. I want to, I mean I do, but I'm probably not going to. I want to remove it in pieces. So kind of like ran like a little flute up that. See? So that wiped out a big chunk of that. You'll also notice that Daltons often have, not all Daltons, but some of them have. They're not the big pronounced flutes, you know, like you'd see on a Clovis or something, but it's at the very tail end of the fluted point technology. It's transitional, and oftentimes you will see little basal thinning flutes like this on Daltons. So that's pretty characteristic, really. And it's because you're going to bifurcate that base, make a platform, and then you're thinning out your hafting area. So that's fairly common to see, but not necessarily set up and then wrapped and actually fluted like we did in the fluting video. So it's more just like we're doing right here, basal thinning. And I'm going to raise the platform here on this side to get the last little bit of this, because we're going to work in our hafting area here anyway, so I need to thin this out. And this side's really nice, so I don't want to mess with it. But we're going to work this hafting area anyway, because we want the hafting area lower than the shoulders when we're working on a point to penetrate an animal. Ideally, you know, if your hafting area sticks out above, that's a point of friction. So that's why you notice that except for very, very heavily sharpened points, you typically find that your hafting areas shrink down in size compared to the cutting blades. And that's just because the cutting blade is cutting the way, and then therefore if you got a gash that's this wide, and then their haft can slide right through it. We're actually going to talk about that quite a bit more in that next Clovis documentary, when we compare the bone, and actually we have ivory points made out of ivory. I don't know if you knew that. And then we threw them into a carcass and see how that does, and you'll be very surprised with the results on that one. You're going to want to watch it and the explanation that goes along with it. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good. I really want to get the last of this out without making another mistake. I did have to take a pretty big hit there. So what we did was that step fracture that we've been fighting, and there's a teeny tiny piece left, but I had a nice platform here, and it completely overshot and terminated off one of those other little mistakes that we had made over here. So I actually wiped, just from one nice platform, wiped out 85% of that step fracture. I mean, what's left there, I can just grab on with a pick and nip that off. And fixed one of these spots, and then I got one more little spot here, which isn't the end of the world. Honestly, we could finish this point out, sharpen it, and that would never affect anything. It would still penetrate, but we have a platform that we're working on right here that we may actually be able to overshoot and clean that up, but we'll look at that in a minute. We still have this one problem area over here from that trash, but we haven't thinned our hafting area sufficiently on this side yet. So once we do that, we'll raise the platform and we'll drive a few more flakes off that direction. And that's probably just what we're going to do right now. Might as well get that off while we can. It's a little bit higher and more annoying than I wanted, but it's what we got to work with. So instead of jumping on it, I'm going to start back in the corner and start working my way up to it, relieving, trying to get some of the other flakes to let go. That was a hard platform there. There we go. And I'm going to have to zigzag it back. This one is kind of that one big mistake that I had made and had to come in. It's kind of messing with me a little bit, but we'll get it sorted out. I can definitely tell you one thing, if it starts to mess up on you, the worst thing you can do is just keep hitting it harder. Gotta sacrifice a little bit of size and make a new platform and try to set it up properly. Come on, baby, get off there. There we go. I get a nice piece there. So that was a big chunk of it. Let's see if we can't go ahead and snag some more. In fact, I'm gonna dress that platform up just a little bit better. I want the best flake removal I can get right now. I don't want all of it. I'm going to take it probably in sections. So there was a nice section there. That got rid of the majority of it, but we still got a few more. And then I'm going to come back to that one. And that popped off really easy. So now we thin that base out really nice. We got just a little bit more right there, but then we've got that whole problem solved. Get that back. Dress that platform just a little bit. I could definitely stand to take that center line over just a little bit, but I'm a little bit worried about I don't want to start getting too thin with my flake removal, or too thin with my thickness, which we still have a good ways to go, but least amount of mistakes at this point, the better. There, we got it. That ran completely over. Perfect. Really just walking that edge up. And maybe one more here, a little bit of cleanup, and then I would like to see if we couldn't walk this one over. But other than that, I mean, we're closing in on it now. Remember, set up your platforms with pressure at this stage. Braid off, and then very directional with your indirect stick. You also probably noticed that, you may have noticed, maybe not, that the stick that I'm using right now does not have the wrapping on it like my other ones do. And the reason I'm doing that is, now the ones that we sell, they still have the wrapping on them, but I'm using a different glue. I'm using, it's a heat curing industrial epoxy. So you have to put it in an oven and bake it, and I'm wanting to see, is this glue strong enough to actually hold this whole thing together and keep it from splitting even without this being wrapped. And so I'm just kind of doing some research and development on that, and we may be able to get rid of the wrapping in the future, but it doesn't hurt anything to have it, that's for sure. I just want to see how tough that glue really is, and so far it's quite nice. But I'm also not beating the crap out of my stick like I used to either. Boy, we're getting close to that spot that I really wanted to walk it off. Man, I didn't do myself any favor. It's just a little fingernail right there, not a big deal. I really want to see if I can't develop this platform and then run this one coast to coast to eliminate that spot. I don't know if we're going to get it, but we're going to try. But now we're starting to get right into the size of the point that I want to spear a bison with. Now we're getting there. Alright, I ran it. It went 7/8 of the way. It stopped, and it didn't give it. It cleared out that nice flats, or that nice dome, but I was really hoping it would go this way, and it kind of redirected, and it left us. But I mean, it's the little bit of a mess we have right there it's almost insignificant. It's really not a big deal, but it was a good try anyway. I actually don't want to go too much thinner. I want to thin just a little 1 or 2 spots up here. I don't want to go much thinner than that. Here we go. Actually that helped a little bit. So I ran this one. Look how long that flake scar is, if you can see that one. Ran that flake scar, and it went 7/8 of the way too, but it didn't fold it over, but it did terminate off one of the, it cleaned off one of the little hinges, so that's 99% gone now as well. So that's nice. Love that indirect percussion for that reason. Man, you can really run some serious flakes with just a little tiny tap too. I got one more here at the base. That's like the last of that little step fracture that we had at the base. I think I might be able to, yep, ran that completely off, so that's good. It's funny though, it's like I've been making so many Clovis points lately for these Clovis studies that even like my overall preform shape just have this paleo look to them, and I'm gonna have to actually force this one into looking more like a Dalton, and because right now it's still much more of a mid paleo style of point minus the fluting. There we go. Clean that up. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. I think at least for this particular moment, man, we got some, tell you what, that's really turned into, I don't know if you guys can really see those flake scars, but we've got so many of these diagonal overshots. They're starting to look like some of those, of course we did it with copper, but starting to look like some of those Clovis points that you see that have the diagonal overshot flakes. So anyway, it's a good looking point and preform right now. So we'll basically just put it into the shape now that we want by using pressure. So we're going to get away from the earlier paleo style and start moving now into a little bit more of the Dalton, which just really is going to be sharpening this tip geometry, so it's taking the roundness out of it. So we're going to straighten that a little bit, and we'll probably work on a little bit. We're starting to get into the Dalton stuff where you're going to be starting to single bevel a little bit more just on your sharpening. So you're not going to intentionally make a point and then like bevel it. Then when it gets heavily beveled, single beveled, it's just from over sharpening on the same side. So you'd sharpen it, and then you'd flip it over and you'd sharpen it, and every time you sharpen it, it's like the point faces away from you and you chip down, and then you flip it over in one row of flakes, and after you do that, that's what starts to create the bevel. And making one beveled to start with has never made any sense to me unless you're just trying to make a reproduction of one. But when we do sharpen this, you'll notice that we'll probably do more of a single bevel type of sharpen on it, as opposed to flopping back and forth and putting the serrations on like we do the arrow points. This will still have serrations though, and I will clean it up, but it won't be quite as fine of serrations. So I'm not trying to really push in a tremendous amount, but I'm not doing just straight down either. I'm doing like a mix of both. What I'm really trying to do is I just want these flakes to come in to about here. I don't want to push in so far that they're step fracturing on me. Clean this base up. I'm just kind of almost going all the way around the point. So again, this isn't really it's not so much a reproduction of a Dalton or anything. It's more like a Ryan Gill Dalton, if you will. There's a bunch of different variations of Dalton points, and it's with copper, so it's certainly not a reproduction, but we're just kind of going for that theme for penetration. So a little heavier bifurcation, and then that kind of that thinning flute that I was talking about that runs up the center. That's not a big one. It's either indirect or pressure, like we just did. And we'll widen that just a little. And a lot of the edges back here, when I have the opportunity, I do a little bit more of a Hardaway style where they kind of come out and they curl a little bit at the end. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it on this one. I don't think I have enough material, but I usually do that. But that's not really important. It's just a style that I like. At this point, we're just gonna get this one cleaned up, make a good hunting point out of it. And that'll be that. Looking good. Clean that tip up a little bit. Need to thin that out. Come on now, get off there. There we go. I don't know if y'all can hear that tearing sound that's in the background or not with the microphone, but you might just be like, what on earth is that noise? That's my wife out there packing orders that are going out to folks. She does all of our order intake and packing and shipping and all that kind of stuff. I'm just the guy that sits in the shop and makes everything. So it's a great team effort. I make it, she takes the order and packs it and ships it and does the bookkeeping, and tell you what, it is really nice having her be involved in it. So we pretty much spend every day together, and she volunteers at the school, and there we go. So it's starting to look pretty nice. A little bit more rounded in the edges than I'm really looking for. However, it would be an early stage Dalton for sure. As it gets sharpened, this edge would get a little bit straighter, a little straight tip geometry, so it wouldn't have any rounding in here. It would just keep getting more and more straightened out like that, which is ideal, what you want for the penetration. But this would be a much earlier stage. So if you were early man making one, you'd pretty well call it at this point. Remember to also doll up your hafting area. And one of the things that I like to do, especially with something that's like a Dalton, my own personal ones, is I like to actually define that hafting area a little bit better. And you do see that on some of the originals as well. And especially once you see them start taking a little bit more of a archaic shape, like the Pedernales points, you'll notice that this starts to get more pronounced and coming out. Let's see how I kind of made those a little bit more pronounced shoulders. So I've got a nice dolled up hafting area right there. and then we could sharpen that one and do it. But I do want to straighten it out just a little bit because I do like the look of it a little bit better. And since I make them all the time, I can do what I want. Just want it to have that little bit more of a Dalton look to it. One that's seen a little bit of action. So I'm being a little bit more direct now with my flake removal for sharpening as well. So not only am I straightening out that tip geometry, but I'm actually trying to run flakes that will potentially make it sharper. You see how we got more of a, we're getting a little bit more of a straighter edge on this side as opposed to this really rounded. So we're starting to have a little bit better look, and to me better penetration as well. So it's kind of like a last row of thinning flakes for me along this edge, and giving it that last shape that I want. And we're almost there. Okay. And actually, we got a little bit of curling or a little bit of bowing to the point, so I'm actually going to flip it over now. Come on now. Start from the other end then. And take some of that out. There we go. Just thinning that edge a little bit. Getting some nice flakes off of that though. That's that spot that was giving me a little bit of trouble. That was that last little piece of step fracture that we couldn't get to completely travel over. Well, we're getting the last of it now. But there we got it. Kept crushing on me. Looking better. I want just a couple more on this side yet, and then we'll be starting to have that little bit more classic look now, right? A little straighter tip, a little better for penetration. That'd be a bison killing point right there. It's still even just maybe a teeny tiny bit on the larger side than what I typically shoot for, believe that or not. But I would have no issue at all whatsoever throwing this into a bison, and it would give us a little bit more room to sharpen it down as well. I think I am gonna put just a little bit of hooking at the end of those. I like the way that it looks when they just sweep back out just a little bit. That's the difference right there. See it? See how this one kind of just sweeps back out just a little bit, and this one's straighter. It's not important. I just like it. It's just a personal preference thing. That's why I kind of wish we had just a little bit more meat at the base, because I would kick those out just a little further. Just like the way they look is all. Okay. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We'll dull that hafting area up again. Remember, I made the hafting area a little bit longer too, so we get a pretty good bite with the shaft and the pitch glue and everything. If your hafting area is really small and this base is bifurcated like this, then you're actually not getting a lot of connection between your shaft if it was really. So we're going to move it up a little bit, so like when we haft this, it would come up even past the hafting area, and then it would blend, but the stick itself would probably come up into here, you know, the foreshaft that we would use. So it would come up into here and then blend back, and then the wrappings would start back here and then wrap behind it. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And we can use the micro flaker if we want to sharpen it, if you're looking to get that a little bit more serrated fine edge like we do on the arrow points. But since this one's more of I mean, and we're not saying a whole lot because we're using copper anyway, but since it's an earlier style, we'll use the copper. But I'm going to do, instead of, I'm going to develop the serrations just a little bit, but I'm not going to go back and really develop them small with the micro flaker like we do in the arrow points, just because it's a little bit too far off that style. So that's pretty sharp right there. And we're starting to lean into that, like that's our first round of sharpening for our single bevel. Right, so you see how when I did the first one, I did it this way, so then you flip it over. Same thing. And I'm trying not to get those multiple crunching sounds, so if I do, I come back and I hit it again. I want those individual clean flakes. I actually crushed a couple too many of those for my liking. Still pretty sharp, but there we go. Fixing just a couple of them. There we are. That's pretty sharp. Still got just a couple of those that crushed, so we'll clean those up. One there. One there. Remember, feel up and down that edge. If you're making stuff to hunt with it, feel up and down that edge. You'll know when you've got a dull spot. So that's all good on that side. And I got one more dull spot kind of right there. Oh, yep, I can see where it is. It's a little crush. It's that one right there. Not pushing hard. I'm just feeling it grab my skin. I would use my fingertips, but my fingertips are so calloused at this point that it's hard to actually feel with it. So that's why I have to use some softer skin. Alright, I think we're good. I think we got it. So, there we go. Does that work for you? See, it's not super thin. It's a really good thickness for an atlatl point. Nice bifurcated base. That right there is a bison killer for sure. Again, a little bit bigger than I would normally shoot for, but this would be a great early stage. So you take it hunting, if you snap the tip off like that, then, or even back here, you would just continue to work it down. And then over time, it's going to get sharpened out even more, and you can see how this drops down below the cutting surface. So this gives us room as well to thin before we start creating points of friction on our haft. So that's kind of the idea behind that design. So that's it. Kentucky Hornstone, modern copper made, but kind of a Dalton-ish style of bison hunting point. So hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you want to watch me use more indigenous tools, make sure you check out some of the other videos. I think that earlier than Clovis, where I did like kind of like the Friedkin style of point. You know, we did all very similar to this style. Realistically, it's just not the bifurcated base per se, but very similar to this. And then we used all indigenous tools. So anyway, check out all those other links down there too for the other videos that we do and getting started, you know, FlintKnapping for beginners, all that kind of stuff. And then also keep an eye out in the next couple weeks for the Clovis, the last of the Clovis video that's coming out. So some great information there if you like this kind of stuff. So all right guys, we'll catch y'all on the next one.